Hello, good morning. I'd like to begin my presentation today with a story. Now, it's not a story I've been told in one piece. It's a story I've put together from many different interviews I have conducted with spouses, mainly for my master thesis, but also for a research project on women in farming. My storytellers are almost all women, so this is a story about a woman. Say her name is Nina. In her mid-20s, she's working in a nice enough job in administration, but something's missing, and she finds it when she meets him. Let's call him Simon. Simon is from a farming family. He proudly shows Nina the farm he wants to take over one day. Nina couldn't be happier. Simon's whole family simply loves her. Why, they almost appear relieved that she, a small town girl, loves their lifestyle. Smile when she's excited to be riding along Simon on his tractor doing silage making. Smile when she's happy to be helping out after work with the milking. The following fall, they are wed. Fast forward some years. Nina lives in a newly built house on the farm, built according to her wishes. In the morning, Nina makes breakfast, drives the kids to kindergarten and school, changes, feeds the calves, changes, drinks a cup of coffee at her mother-in-law's, everyone discussing their work for the day, puts the washing in, calls the vet, cleans up kid stuff, tries to sort out that application for agricultural funding, which is flying around, takes the washing out, pre-prepares lunch, picks the kids up at noon, slightly late, gets a call from her husband when she's near town. Could you just pick up that spare part at the mechanic? And so the day continues. Life is good, and Simon is the perfect partner for Nina's perfect life as a boyarin, a farmer's wife. Now, every time people tell me parts of the story, I mark at the pride taken in living and managing life on a farm. The confidence that comes from having a settled life, a house built, the kids doing all right, the farm work well taken care of. Everything seems to have worked out perfectly. But I've always been wondering about the underneath, about the structure of such a life, and on what this confidence is built on and how safe it really is. In 2019, I began field research for my master thesis on spouses in family farming. I wanted to understand how they perceive their participation in the farm, not only on how they see their work performed for the family business, but also on how they see their legal status, their participation in decision-making processes, what liabilities they had signed for, and what property actually belonged to them. I was looking for answers to questions such as, what happens in the event of divorce? Or what happens if they are left? What are they left with if their spouse suddenly deceases? I conducted semi-structured interviews with 12 participants in 3 stages of life. So 4 couples were in the process of taking over the farm, 4 were running farms, and 4 were thinking of handing their farm to the next generation. The farm businesses were diverse. Some reared pigs, others were in the dairy business, some had fruit plantation, others were in the education sector. Some farms were moderately large for the region, others yet were rather small. From what my interview partners told me, I deduced that some farms were making a profit and others weren't. The one similarity that all farms had was that they were located in one region in the southwest of Germany. I've put it in here roughly into the map you can see on the slide. This is because inheritance and other laws are complex even within Germany. I wanted comparable conditions. Overall, I talked to 11 women and 1 man. Honestly, I wish I had had more male interview partners, but men were strangely reluctant to talk to me about having married into a farm. When I analyzed my transcripts, many romantic stories began to crumble. Happy, confident lives were astonishingly precarious, and almost no one seemed fully aware of the consequences. Ultimately, it turned out that the socio-economic participation of spouses into family farming is much more complex and varied than I initially thought. The extent of how much socioeconomic aspects could be mixed with no coherent logic at first sight surprised me. I've tried to draw a little diagram for you. I hope I get the message across. In my sample, the work taken on by spouses on a farm could coincide with their participation in decision-making processes, the financial liabilities they assume when signing for debts, their involvement in the official legal business structure on the farm, and with property relations between the spouses and or other family members. But equally, they did not coincide in most cases, or they coincided only in parts. So here's an example. Ulrike runs the farm household and is the main contact for everything to do with their horse business. She is the sole person taking care of the farm's apartment rental for tourists. For all this, she does the books as well as doing all office work for the farm's other branches that was growing wine and grain and offering services as an agricultural contractor. She owns around 2/5 of the wine and farmland, which she received from her parents upon marriage. But plus, she owns a few houses she has built together with her husband. She has a business that rents out her land to the rest of the farm, but she is not part of the horse business or any other branches she works in. She is liable for every investment in all farm branches, and she says she participates in all decisions for all branches, but she clearly calls herself the boss for the horse business. If you're confused, don't worry, I was too when I heard this. And I was really curious about this mix-up and the reasons for it. Now, the involvement in the legal business structure often has to do with optimizing the application of tax laws, I found out, and this in turn leads to, I'd call it skewed liabilities. Sometimes it was also a question of saving on health insurance, and all this led to spouses being a part of business branches where they didn't work and where they didn't actually make any decisions, and not being part of those where they did. Again, not in all cases, but in quite a lot. In my sample, the ownership of land so that is also the ownership of wealth and of assets which are important to farming, had to do with how much interview partners brought into their marriage or inherited from their own parents, and whether they insisted on being in the books when they bought land together with their partners. Interestingly, ownership of land wasn't as bleak as my literature analysis had prepared me for. I can't go into this in more detail, sadly, because of the time, but I have here some excellent literature on the slide. So some people in my sample owned a lot of land and others owned nothing. And interestingly enough, gender didn't seem to play a part in this. On a little side note, I'd like to mark that parts of my region are historically known for males and females as having equal access to land. So I'm not sure if I'm also seeing partly regional historic roots. Concerning newly built houses, building laws were cited as the reason why newly built houses were actually the property of parents-in-law, even if the spouses marrying into the farm had invested large sums of money, and they were sometimes very large sums of money. Many told me that bank clerks had left them with no choice but to sign for liabilities, and also without anything to insure them in case something went wrong. I wondered at why most interview persons did this with little questions asked, and I wondered if an internalization of the values of family farming had to do with this. Now, this internalization is something that is, again, often found in literature. So again, I've sadly only written it on the slide. Again and again, my interview partners told me that they simply trusted their spouses and their spouses' families to be fair if anything ever happened. Now, rationally, some knew that they should do something about their situation. They even told me so. But somehow, well, they just hadn't gotten around to it. And after all these years, it didn't really matter now, did it? Others didn't seem aware of how precarious their lives were, and they didn't want to be aware of it either. Our marriage is a happy one, I was told, time and again. And contrary to what I had expected, young women were not better off than older ones. I can only speculate about whether this has to do with the fact that most younger ones came from outside of the farming community and ardently embraced the farming life. So in brackets, the patriarchal way of doing farming. Since I'm nearing the end of my 15 minutes here, I'd like to go back to my original questions that prompted me to begin researching spouses in agriculture. What happens in the event of divorce? Or if the farming spouse deceases? Talking about the finer points of German marriage law is a bit much today, especially since there are regional specialities and laws unique to agriculture, but I'd be happy to answer any particular questions you have later in the discussion. But I think you can grasp the main ideas if we get back to Nina, the woman we met in the beginning of my presentation. Again, I've taken real stories I've heard and woven them into her tale. One day, Simon tells Nina that he is so happy. He has found the love of his life. He profoundly thanks Nina for her love, for the kids, for their life. But ultimately, their marriage is at an end. Nina moves out, taking the kids with her. Simon buys a small house in the village. Until the kids are of age, Nina may live here with them. Nina should take up a new job, but what? The kids are only taken care of in the morning. She's quit her job years ago. No chance to get back to it, especially not part-time. Even though the farm has expanded in the last few years, she hardly gets any compensation for her years spent working on the farm. And frankly, she doesn't want to either. If Simon had to sell parts of the farm, there'd be nothing left for her children to take over one day. Her pension claims for the years spent on the farm are extremely low, but without a proper job, she can't increase them. And she still has the liabilities for the new house and the extension to the cowshed they built. No chance to get rid of those. She's just going to have to hope for the best. Of course, it's possible to secure oneself against running into this kind of worst case scenario, for example, with wills and with marriage contracts, or by taking care to synchronize the operation of business branches with their ownership and legal structures. There are some excellent courses on this throughout Germany, but spouses have to take the initiative, think about unpleasant scenarios, discuss them with their partners, and actually sign contracts which are fair on all parties. Nearly all my interview partners had taken some measures to secure themselves, but they weren't sufficient and often initiated by grave accidents with happy endings. Or as one participant told me, somehow everyone says one has to secure oneself, even against one's own partner, but I'm opposed to it. I have no problem with him owning everything and me owning nothing. I'm sorry, I forgot to show that. That's the picture to the story. I'd like to conclude my talk today with a few hypotheses concerning the equality of spouses in family farming. As far as I can make out, they apply for women and for men and for all ages. So first, marriage into farms is a highly complex socio-economic and legal affair. Most farmers, farming families, and spouses aren't fully aware of this. Farming families may not have a lot of money at their disposal, but most farms bind huge fortunes, especially in Germany. Marriages are often between financially unequal partners, and balancing all needs in all situations is a difficult task. Second, at the moment, in Germany at least, the legal situation leaves spouses almost no choice but to negotiate their marriage vow. especially if jobs are quit to take care of children, or because commuting to work becomes too difficult, if liabilities are signed, if work on the farm is literally taken for granted, and newly built houses remain the property of parents-in-law until the farm is handed over. Third, but negotiating is difficult in an emotional relationship based on love and trust. Bringing up hard financial issues is not everyone's idea of romance. What equality is or what it is not is even more complex in a relationship than in a business cooperation. Fourth, spouses internalize the ideas of a family farm that must always have priority over individual interests. They do not want to become a burden to the farm. So ultimately, they waive their rights in favor of a surviving family farm and a model they themselves might even view as well-balanced and fair. So I would like to argue that not only more research is needed on the very complex participation of spouses, but agricultural training, teaching, and counseling should also sensitize to this. Thank you very much. I look forward to the discussion and will now stop my presentation mode.